So just started recording now, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, Johns Hopkins. I'm Tom McKenzie. I'm the Assistant Director of Admission at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland. Johns Hopkins is very, very popular amongst our medical student body in terms of undergrad institutions attended. So I just want to say thank you for being here and thanks for your interest. We'll talk here for about 30 minutes. I'll give some tips, tricks, recommendations on applying to medical school. I'll give some things that we're looking for at Case. I'll also talk heavy about Case Western, our curriculum, and then we'll save it last 10, 15 minutes or so for questions, and we can be on our way, all right? So just want to say thank you. I've been in my role as the Assistant Director of Admissions for about 6.5 years, so I am very familiar with the med school admissions process. I interview medical students, I review applications for admission heavily, and I have about overall higher education experience, about 12 years in the industry. So I very passionate about medical school admissions. I love helping students get into medical school. It's a big part of what I do, and I enjoy it a lot. So I'll share my email at the end of the talk and presentation as well. Feel free to, if anyone wants to just turn their cameras on, it's always great to see everybody. No pressure, no big deal if not, but always it's wonderful to put names to faces and just see faces and whatnot. So don't hesitate if you want to be more social or whatever. So I'll go ahead and get started. But Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine's in Cleveland, as many of you know. We have a brand new building, which perhaps many of you know as well. It's almost 500,000 square feet. One thing nice about Case Western Nursing, the dental school, and the PA school is all under the same roof, which is ideal. We actually have carved out time with all the health professions every Wednesday at from 3 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday afternoon, once a week. Medicine's a team sport. Many of you probably know this on the call here today, but you want to go to medical school and you want to go into any of the health professions, you got to know how to work as a team. And working with others is so critical to the industry's success and your success and the patient's success that you're going to be caring for, the individual public that we're caring for too. So big teamwork experiences are huge to have on a medical school application, both to Case and all the schools that you're applying to. If I could really pick, I don't know, one thing that I would say to have on an application besides like patient care exposure or research, it would be teamwork experiences. Working as a team is so critical. So that can be not even medical related experiences in terms of teamwork. Any kind of teamwork is really imperative and really ideal to have on an application. But our new building is huge. If anyone's in the Cleveland area or you're interested in a tour, I'll chat my email in the chat box here and then I'll share it at the end of the presentation. Please shoot me an email. I love showing students around the facility. It's really been a game changer for us. We've been here about 4 and a half years, opened in 2019. We had a pandemic mixed in there as well. So we're still getting very much established, but it's been a lot of fun. I know a lot of you are familiar with AMCAS, but the biggest takeaway I just want to share on this slide with AMCAS is please apply early to medical school. Applications are really reviewed on a first come, first serve basis. And please apply sometime in June, AMCAS, and then get your secondary application July, August. So I say June, second week of July for AMCAS. Takes about 4 weeks to verify your information, get your secondary application, submit those by July, August, or maybe early September at the latest, okay? Just like to say that with AMCAS, it opens generally the first Monday in May every year. You can submit generally the last Monday in May or the first week in June. No special points by applying at midnight on June 1st or May 31st. Nothing like that, but applying early is big. So I like to always like to put that plug in. One big takeaway from this talk, please apply early. All right. American Medical College Application Service is the same application that all allopathic med schools use in the United States outside of medical schools in the state of Texas. And osteopathic schools have their own application service as well. So AMCAS will calculate a GPA for everybody as well, everyone that applies. So you will have a GPA calculated, might be similar to what's on your transcript at Johns Hopkins, might look a little different. The 3 differences that might be are AMCAS does not do any kind of grade replacement. So if you took a course multiple times, both that first and that second attempt are going to be counted. If you transferred schools or attended multiple undergraduate institutions, it's going to be the undergrad credit you've received throughout your entire undergraduate career as an undergrad student. So if that's schools besides Johns Hopkins, that's going to be included in your GPA too. And if you took college level courses while you were a high school student, That's also going to be factored into your undergrad GPA. So AMCAS calculates a grade point average based on all the undergraduate coursework that you've received. That screenshot below is exactly what I see when I review an application. We don't see transcripts. We see the AMCAS application service and their GPA and all your coursework listed that's converted for you. So there's a kind of a screenshot of everything there. BCMP is biochemistry, physics, mathematics, kind of your science and math GPA, and then AO stands for all others. Average GPA coming into medical allopathic med school in the past year was around a 3.7, 3.74, I believe, to be exact. If you're below a 3.5, 3.4, I'd recommend considering a post-bac or a master's. Now, you don't have to, but I would recommend you consider it, all right? Post-bacs are great because it's a continuation of your undergraduate GPA. So your GPA is calculated by AMCAS with all your undergrad coursework and all your post-bac coursework put together. Graduate GPA, you apply to medical school with 2 GPAs, a graduate GPA and an undergraduate GPA. The graduate GPA is going to hold a lot more weight because that's going to be the most recent. Case Western and many other medical schools value a strong upward grade trend. It's kind of a brutal business. What have you done for me lately? But a strong upward grade trend is big, whether that's tail end of undergrad, last year of undergrad, or post-bac or graduate school. And that box there is a screenshot of exactly what we see on an AMCAS application. GPA and MCAT are the most important tools to an application in terms of the review process. Yes, it is holistic review. It 100% is. There is a level of reality. It is also a numbers game too. I would say at least half the decision, maybe as far as about 60% of the decision, over half is going to be based upon the GPA and MCAT. Can you handle the academic rigor of medical school? All right. I wouldn't say one is bigger or better or more important than another. A lower GPA, can a high MCAT save you? Yeah, it could. I mean, 3.74 is the average GPA across all allopathic med schools last year. 50% were below and above that threshold. So yeah, I would say 100%. It depends on your GPA, depends on your MCAT. If I have a low GPA and I have really strong extracurriculars, yeah, that's great too. Just depends on the GPA, depends on your curriculars. It is holistic review, but it is also a numbers game. I would say most of the decision is going to be based upon the GPA and MCAT. Students ask about majors. What should I major in? It really doesn't matter. As long as you meet the prerequisites, a more rigorous major is nice, but it's also just only one piece to a large application. So do I get credit for a more rigorous major? Yeah, probably. Maybe just not as much as you like, okay? Because it's one piece to a large application. MCAT scores. Do not take the MCAT more than 3 times. I think any more than 3 times does reflect negatively on your application. And also medical schools take your most recent MCAT score. So not your highest, your most recent. I would say statistically speaking, odds are pretty good that will be the highest, your most recent. But again, it's your most recent score. All right, so talked a little bit about MCAT GPA there. That's going to be a little over half the decision. Let's open up about enhancing your application to med school. You want to share your story. AMCAS is kind of a larger application, but the 2 main components of AMCAS that we're going to be looking at are the experiences section, what you've done, and then the personal statement, which is the why medicine. So when you fill out AMCAS, experiences is the what, personal statement is the why medicine. All right. I made this list of little fun activities. This is a list of all the mostly non-medical related experiences that our incoming class participated in last year. So all the first-year medical students, one of them was likely in one of these experiences the past year, okay? We have like a military weather forecaster, a chef, a missionary, a karate instructor, a coffee brewer, a culinary specialist in the South Korea Army. That was a new one. A surgical nurse, an athletic trainer. You get the idea, okay? I mentioned teamwork. Medicine's a big team sport. I love it when I see varsity athletes apply to medical school. That's time, commitment, teamwork, a solid transferable skill to medical school and the field of medicine. If you play an instrument, if you sing, if you dance. My partner, my wife, she is an elementary school music teacher. I have to love the arts in my household or I'll get the boot, seriously. So I'm going to tell you, the arts are big. I love the arts. I know the time and dedication the arts take. another solid transferable skill to the field of medicine, right? Put this stuff on your application. I think that's like the moral of the story here. Really put this stuff on your application because it's important to have a life outside of your career. That's big. Hobbies, other interests. Sometimes when I see an application that's nothing but medical school related experiences or medical related experiences, I kind of think, man, you're going to burn out, you know? It's like, you haven't even got to med school yet, right? It's one of those things where, gosh, if you can show that you have a well-rounded, application in a variety of teamwork experiences, and you have a kind of strong sense of self with all that you're involved in, I think that helps avoid burnout, doing a wide range of things. And I think that a lot of medical schools really appreciate that you have a life outside of your career, because that work-life balance is so critical. And so many of these things are solid transferable skills to the field of medicine, even like customer service type roles, working with the general public. It has its challenges. So again, put this stuff on your application. Okay, what do you really need? Medical related experiences. That's a must. So medical related experiences, have you shadowed? Have you volunteered at a hospital or worked at a hospital or some kind of clinical type setting? Any type of setting where you're caring for a patient. That's everything we're looking for. Caring for a patient in any kind of patient care setting. I love hospice. I love in-home caregiving. I've seen EMTs apply to medical school, volunteer at a nursing home. I don't want to put like a number of hours required, but I will share it's not uncommon for someone to enter medical school with several hundred hours of patient care exposure. Research is a great way to show commitment to medicine as well. We actually don't require research at Case. Yes, we're a big research school, but we do not require research. Don't fill out all 15 experiences in AMCAS just to fill out all 15. Quality, way more important than quantity, okay? So the first 3 experiences you list are the most meaningful experiences, as you know, in AMCAS. I'd recommend one of those first 3 you list be a medical-related experience. So I hope that kind of helps provide a little bit of context. Some of my personal favorites, I love hospice. I love work with the geriatrics population. I love medical scribing. I call that shadowing on steroids. Those are really invaluable medical-related experiences to have on an application. I get a question about the future a lot. What is the future going to look like? The biggest thing I will share is, as you know, I'm on Zoom. You're on Zoom. We're having a conversation virtually, okay? I don't think the days of virtual conversations are going away, and I don't think the days of virtual interviewing are going away. I would get used to interviewing on Zoom. Yes, there will be some medical schools that interview in person and will continue to do so, but I think it's going to be more the exception than the norm. I think that interviewing on Zoom is going to be a new normal and continue to be kind of more of a, not so much a new normal anymore, but more of a current normal for many. So practice mock interviews on Zoom, good Wi-Fi, quiet space, practice with friends and family. If you have any virtual experiences from your time at Hopkins or in your time from 2020 and 2021 and you were in school, put that on your application. It's going to hold an equal weight to anything that was in person, truly. We're still looking at that. I know the pandemic, we're getting out of the pandemic now, but I understand that's still individuals feeling the effects from that, okay? But get used to virtual interviewing. I will share. I don't think it's going to be going away anytime soon. Gap years. All right. I always share non-traditional is the new traditional when applying to medical school. Between 70 and 76%, 76% was our highest, of students in 2021 had at least 1 year between college graduation and matriculation to undergrad. And I'm going to tell you that when in doubt, take a gap year. Now, you know yourself better than anybody. If you're ready to apply to med school, apply. Please do it. If you feel ready and you feel prepared, you've put the time in. It takes years to build a med school application. But if you've put that time in and you feel you're ready, by all means do it. Because I will share that you want to go in expecting to put your best application forward. And if you are ready to do that and prepared, by all means do it, okay? But I will share, it's kind of like a job interview. Let's say I'm interviewing for a job and I have 2 or 3 people that have a few more years of experience than I do interviewing for the same job. Just might be a little tougher for me to beat that individual for the job and be selected for that job. Doesn't mean that I can't get it. It just means it's going to be a little tougher. So you can do anything on a gap year. It can be a Peace Corps, Teach for America, even non-medical related. Working in customer service for a year. I understand you got to have some college loans or whatever that is. Everyone's circumstances is different. Think about all the self-growth that happens in a year. That's big. So definitely, I'm going to highly advise when in doubt, take a gap year, and there's not a right or wrong gap year experience. Okay. So little brief rundown on the application process and some tips. Hope that was helpful, and we can certainly take questions at the end of the talk for that. But I'm going to do a quick little 10, 15-minute plug here on Case Western. And Cleveland and Baltimore are similar. I will say, if you spend some time in Baltimore, you're going to have a lot of similarities to Cleveland and Baltimore. You're on the water. Now, obviously Baltimore's on the bay, so to speak, but Cleveland, you're on the shores of Lake Erie. If you're from California, it's not quite the Santa Monica Pier of LA. But I will share, it's a really nice place to live, grow, and develop as a professional. I'll promise you. And truly, I'll put the sunsets up against anywhere in the country. So we're located in University Circle, which is kind of like a historic park-like setting. A lot of really unique building designs and architectures, very historic. They call it Ohio's finest square mile. It truly is. That building that you see there is Severance Hall, which is home to the top 5 orchestra in the entire world. We have the Botanical Gardens. We have 3 out of our 4 major hospitals are within walking distance to the University Circle neighborhood, and we're about 4 miles or so, maybe even 2-3 miles or so from downtown. So very close to downtown. We were founded in 1843. We have 3 distinct MD programs and 3 different MD tracks you can choose at Case Western. Very innovative curriculum, which I'll talk about, but the biggest thing that stands out about Case are our teaching hospitals, which I'll talk about next. And we are a big research school. Every student will be required to complete a 12-week research block. So everyone graduates with research experience at the MD level when they apply to residency training, which is huge. So here's our teaching hospitals. I will share that this is probably the biggest appealing aspect of Case in Cleveland. There's so many things I could share about Case Western, but if I could share one thing about Case in Cleveland, it would be our teaching hospitals. You can see that all of our hospitals are each very different too, where you'll see a very diverse patient population. Metro Health Medical Center is a public safety hospital, just built a brand new campus. It's a level 1 trauma center. There's an LGBT pride clinic. There's a Spanish speaking clinic. There's even, get this, a Cleveland Public High School. Physically located, a STEM high school, physically located inside Metro Health, and those students have access to some, flu shots, preventative healthcare services, and exposure to the healthcare field. Might be the only hospital in the United States where there's a high school physically located in the hospital. Many people in Cleveland also even don't know that Cleveland has the nation's 3rd largest VA hospital. One of the most respected and largest VA medical centers is in Cleveland as well. Cleveland Clinic is the most well-known brand outside of the Northeast Ohio region. Cleveland Clinic's main campus is right by our new building. And I will share, it's big because Cleveland Clinic is Ohio's largest employer. It has its own zip code. There are satellite campuses across the country and world, but the mothership is here in Cleveland, Ohio. University Hospital is the state's 5th largest employer in Ohio. And they have a Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital, is a very well-known children's hospital in the country, and it's affiliated with the University Hospital system. So you have 4 very different hospitals that'll give you 4 very different patient population exposures. And the nice thing about Cleveland is Case is the only kind of med school in the city limits. So you're not maybe in a Boston or a New York or an LA where you have so many med students and so many schools vying for however many spots in the hospitals. That's a big draw. Biggest feedback I get from students that come from East Coast, West Coast, wow, I can really kind of train where I'd like. And that's huge. So the 3 different options for how you want to go into your training are, the first is the MD PhD, Medical Scientist Training Program, 8 years. That's right, 8 years. You want research first, physician second. Probably don't want to make patient care your primary focus. You probably want to have an application that's 80% research focused and then 20% patient care. I will share that you want to be more of that behind the scenes person in medicine. Think about a production, right? You got the actor and then the behind the scenes camera individual. The behind the scenes camera individual has an equal role in making sure the production is a success. So that's kind of, you want to be more of that behind the scenes person and serve a critical role and maybe not in the spotlight caring for patients. But the MD PhD program is the oldest in the United States at Case. We have a small also MD track called the Cleveland Clinic Learner College of Medicine, also called CCLCM. This is a 5-year MD. A lot of similarities to the traditional 4-year MD. It's very small though, 32 students per class. It is tuition free, not going to lie, that's a nice perk. But you'll have an entire year of research in the learner program. So how it works is you will spend an entire year doing research as opposed to 12 weeks in the university program. So a lot of similarities, but to give you an idea, you'll graduate with a whole year of research experience under your belt. Got to have research to apply for this program as well. All right, the university program, what I represent. This is our most popular program, 170 students per class, 50% small group, 50% case-based learning, research not required to apply. This is a screenshot of what the first 2 years of medical school look like at Case Western. You do not have a list of classes or courses with course descriptions. The curriculum is divided into 6 different blocks. It's a totally pass-fail grade system the first 2 years, no honor system, no award merit of any kind. And how CASE works in the curriculum, the main vehicle in the curriculum is IQ. You're going to be divided into case inquiry teams, which are teams of 8 students and 1 faculty member. And you will receive 2 patient cases a week. So you'll have actual patient cases of scenarios where students will go through patient cases paragraph by paragraph and talk about everything we know about the patient and everything we don't know about the patient. And they're pretty involved. You might review some MRI findings, you might review some CT scans, or maybe you'll review some lab results even. And you go through what you know and what you don't know. And students will work together to create a set of teaching objectives, which are about 10 to 15 at least different essay questions that they take away from this particular patient case and situation. The goal, ask the right questions. Learn how to think like a physician those first 2 years of medical school. Again, important to know what you know, but it's more important to know what you don't know. What don't we know about this particular patient and situation? You switch IQ teams and faculty facilitators every block, and you'll work with each one of your med school peers over the course of your medical school experience. 8 to 10, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But that's where you also spend the bulk of your time outside the classroom as well. This is a typical day in the life of a first or second year medical student. You can see 12 p.m. on tends to be very flexible. You do have once a week collaborative practice sessions, but mostly you're going to have self-directed learning time. Don't call it free time. We don't like to say free time. We say self-directed learning time to be kind of correct, so to speak. But the reality is during the self-directed learning time, it is your time to pursue maybe a pathway, pursue a dual degree opportunity, pursue other research, pre-clerkship electives. You have a lot of flexibility in the curriculum with the way it's structured. If you're highly disciplined, you have strong time management skills. I don't think you'll think of the first 2 years of med school as the deepest, darkest years of your life, truly. I think you can maintain some pretty good work-life balance. It's going to be hard, but believe me, there's going to be times 20 hours a week. All right, it's easy. Not like that. But I'm going to share with so little required unstructured or structured classroom time, you do have a lot of flexibility to make experiences your own. And also opportunities to get involved outside your outside the classroom to build your resume for residency training and next steps, which is critical. Anatomy. Probably the most exciting thing happening at the School of Medicine at Case Western is our anatomy curriculum. We have a huge new building, like I mentioned, and within that building is a huge digital anatomy suite. Most of our anatomy curriculum is now taught digitally. We do have dissection. It's an intensive 2-week boot camp where you'll do nothing but dissect for 2 weeks. But then starting in block 2, you're going to have your own set of HoloLens goggles, and you'll put on the goggles and then augmented reality. So it's like I see you, you see me, we see everything in the room, but then digital content is inserted into the room as if it's actually there. Augmented reality is a pretty surreal experience. I'm not going to lie. You can see everything you can see in dissection. Stick your head up and see inside like the chest cavity and see how the diaphragm and lungs move. Click your fingers, see how everything's interconnected in the body. It's pretty surreal. So I'm going to share, I've done the demo, I've brought friends and family to do the demo. Efficiency is the name of the game. You cover a lot of ground in a shorter duration of time. We did a 3-year pilot prior to 2019 when we first launched this technology, and the results have been unbelievable. Students' minds are blown when they try this technology. Google it, YouTube it. There's a lot of good literature on it. Very unique to Case, but it's been a game changer. Okay, so that's a little bit about the highlights of Case Western. Everybody loves stats, so I'm going to go over the stats from last year. I don't have, I don't have these exact numbers below for each program, but I do have our application numbers. We are a little bit up from a year ago. You can see our numbers there. We interview about 800 students a year in the university program. We offer about 450 students. So over half of the students we accept to Case Western will decline our admissions offer. And they're fortunate to get into multiple medical schools. And most students that are offered an interview are offered admission. Freddie interviews pretty well usually. Same is true for the medical scientist training program and the Cleveland Clinic Learner College of Medicine. You can see the breakdown there. Yes, competitive application process in terms of being selected for an interview, but if you are offered an interview, majority of students are admitted. Not always, of course, but probably a 55 to 45% ratio of admitted, not admitted in terms of who's invited for an interview. Okay, interviewees. Wow, 206 different colleges and universities last year, 41 states. Wide GPA and MCAT range. And there's who we accepted. Again, wide GPA and MCAT range. Everyone that matriculated to Case Western last year came from all these states. 32 states in total, 5 different countries. Maryland's very popular. And as you'll see from this next slide coming up, we're a very geographically diverse class, as well as from a large range of undergrad institutions. But admission tuition is the same across the board. Case is a private school, so admission tuition is all the same. We're about 20% out of state. Or I'm sorry, 20% in state, 80% out of state. I just misspoke there. I apologies. 80% out of state. That's just the way the numbers fall. And how's it going, Johns Hopkins? You had 17 students matriculate to Case Western out of our class of 170 last year. So right behind Case undergraduate. University of Michigan, as well as Cal Berkeley, is always near the top of the list as well. Cal Berkeley was a little lower this year, but you can see there were over 89 different undergraduate institutions a year ago. Average GPA across the board, all of medical school admissions for those that were admitted and accepted and matriculated was a 3.74. We're a little higher at Case, 3.83. But again, averages are averages. 50% are below and above that threshold. Same with the science GPA. Average was 3.67 nationally, 3.79 at Case. 50% are below and above that standard. So wide range. Don't let those numbers scare you. Especially don't let this number scare you. 95 percentile, 518 was our average MCAT, but there's a wide range, 505 to 527. The national average is a 512. So that's the national average for all students that matriculated to allopathic med school last year. If you have an MCAT score below a 511, below the national average, I might recommend you consider retaking the MCAT. Now, you do not have to, but I would recommend you consider it, okay? Students who fall below the national average are admitted to Case tend to be very non-traditional students, as in they've been out of school for 5 or more years in terms of undergrad. Or they maybe are first-generation students who have overcome some significant adversity. And while their MCAT score is a little bit lower, they are able to contribute really just to the diversity and life perspective and experiences within our student body. So again, 50% or below and above that 511. Do not let that number scare you. It's a wide range, okay? But if you are below the national average, yeah, consider retaking the MCAT as a possibility. Put it that way. No more than 3 times on the MCAT. Case takes your most recent score, not the highest, the most recent. Okay, I'll sum it up before we close out. Commitment to medicine. That's the biggest thing. So patient care experiences is what we're looking for. That's big. Research is great too. Not required, but research is great too. Any kind of patient care exposure, not uncommon to enter medical school at Case with hundreds of hours of patient care exposure. And can you work as a team? Do you have a high level of empathy where you can see things from another person's perspective? And can you work as a team? That just for fun slide I showed. I love it when individuals have a life outside of their career. There are so many things that are solid transferable skills to medicine. A medical school interview is not the kind of setting where you're going to get quizzed on maybe these different science terms or something along those lines. We want to get to know you. We'll teach you everything when you get here. So we want to get to know you and why you're interested in to go to medical school, why you want to do this for a career, and why now. AMCAS. Apply early. Remember that one too. Submit your secondary application in July or August or early September at the latest. Many of you might be familiar with our All Access Admissions podcast. We're approaching 500,000 downloads now. and I will share my boss, Christian Essman, interviews admissions deans across the country. Gets a lot out of it. They talk about their admissions processes. It's a plethora of information, totally free for anybody to download. Instagram and Twitter, we post our latest updates. Feel free to follow us on social media. And there's my email address as well. Again, please email me. I can talk to anybody up until they submit their application. I love helping students get into med school. It's a big part of what I do. I'm going to close now with 2 tips in the process. The first tip I'm going to share, don't hesitate to apply to the Doctor of Osteopathic Medical School. It's more common oftentimes now, I've heard from students, to apply like both MD and DO instead of just one or the other. DOs all fill out the same residency applications as MDs now. Once you're in practice, it really doesn't matter, truly. I'm going to share, it's a competitive process. You want to give yourself a best opportunity of being admitted, and the more schools you're able to apply to and the wider net you can cast, sometimes the better off you can be. And also, don't hesitate to share why Case in Cleveland or why any of the schools you're applying to. We have an optional essay in our secondary application at Case, and the essay just is, tell us anything else you want the admissions committee to know about you. I'd say most students don't fill it out, and I get it. You fill out enough essays, right? But I'm going to share, like, a lot of students, not a lot, some students will fill out, here's why I'm interested in Case. Mention me by name even. I love it when I see students. Yeah, I was on a webinar for Johns Hopkins, and yeah, I met Tom McKenzie, the assistant director. I was really intrigued. I jumped online, and this is great. I'm excited. I start every interview. I've been interviewing medical students for a number of years. I open every interview with the question, how did Case get on your radar? Well, it's kind of funny. I go to Johns Hopkins, and I was on Zoom, and I heard a presentation from Tom McKenzie. Oh, wow, I know Tom. That sets the tone. Good first impression, good conversation to move forward. So all those are something to think about. Research the curriculum, the patient population, the city, and take that same approach with all the med schools you apply to. I find I'm not only reviewing applications for qualifications, but likelihood that you're going to matriculate if you're offered admission, I think, is another big factor as well. So I hope this was helpful. Again, I really appreciate everyone's time, and thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. And I know, I'm not sure if there's questions in the chat here. Doesn't look like anyone typed any questions, but if anyone has questions, drop it into the chat, and I can certainly take any questions now as well, or feel free to unmute your mic, and we can have a conversation. Oh, thank you, Amy. Clapping, that's a little much, but thank you. I appreciate it. Go ahead, David.
Hey, how are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for being here today. What's going on?
Yeah, of course. I have a question regarding the I think it was the Cleveland Learners, and it was the MPH with you do the 1-year program of research.
Yep.
Yeah. So in the application, if I were to apply, and I know the class size is a little bit smaller, so I assume it's going to be more competitive. If I don't get in, does that get knocked out to like the regular MD path, or does it get just completely denied?
No, it just gets knocked out of the learner pool. The MD PhD and the university program, it's almost like applying to 3 different med schools. I don't even see the learner decision. So yeah, it's almost like applying to 2 different med schools. The decisions do not correlate with each other. You can get admitted to both and then choose.
Okay.
You'll probably choose the one with free tuition, but you know what I mean? So it's one of those where, yeah, one decision does not correlate to another.
Okay, great. That was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can apply to all 3 programs, get accepted to all 3 programs, apply to 2, get accepted to 1. It doesn't make a difference. You indicate in the secondary application, I want to apply to learner. You don't indicate that in AMCAS.
Okay.
Yeah, just indicate Case Western, then you can apply to all 3. It's 1 app fee for all 3 programs. So it's kind of like 2 for the price of 1, kind of, sort of.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you do have to have research experience to apply to learner. So it asks you that question. Then if you don't, I don't think it lets you apply.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
It looks like Jessica is next. Go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for speaking with us today.
My pleasure.
I actually had a quick question regarding some of the opportunities there are for the med students at Case, as far as possible like interest groups or things to kind of gear them up for residency applications.
Oh boy, we have a plethora of special interest groups, Jessica. I will tell you, there's a special interest group for dozens of different specialties of medicine. I think we had 70 or 80 different specialties match. I would say we have about that number of special interest groups too. They're mostly run by the second year students and many times third and fourth year students as well. But yeah, I mean, they join one of our special interest groups, get on the listserv. They have match panel after match day. They'll have speakers come. There's some here, a shadowing / scribing or inside info opportunity. You have a wide variety of opportunities to explore a wide range of specialties. So the special interest groups are very popular, and you'll be well prepared and well informed to have a wide variety of opportunities of identifying your specialty. Come in with an open mind, because there's a lot of options and a lot of availability to choose from.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's all student run, and there's also a faculty sponsor that is family medicine doctor in the family medicine special interest group, etc. Looks like Amarita is next.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm curious as to what's a resource that students who matriculate may not know about at first, but you would definitely recommend that they check out while they're at Case.
Oh gosh, yeah, I think I will share. We do a pretty good job of sharing with students all that the resources are out there. So it's tough to identify one where it's like, well, some students don't know about this. I think, the big thing that comes to my mind is like, and maybe you experience this living in Baltimore. It's not, Cleveland is not like high on everybody's destination list. It's not like I'm going to pack my bags and move to Cleveland. You don't hear that line a lot, like in terms of, I can't wait to do this. And maybe Baltimore has that same rap, but Cleveland has running water and indoor plumbing and all the things a big city has to offer. And it's a huge healthcare hub. I mean, Cleveland and Baltimore have a lot of similarities. You can't go wrong with Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. You kind of probably all know that. I mean, the same holds true for Case. I mean, you have 4 very different teaching hospitals with really the only school in the university circled city limits. It's a very ideal setting. A lot of individuals come to medical school and Case for the healthcare hub that Cleveland is. The economic impact healthcare has on the city of Cleveland, I put it up against any city in the country. I really would. There were 176, I think, different specialties of medicine in the United States last year. Every single one exists in Cleveland amongst our 4 hospitals. Okay, that was in 2022. If somebody fact checks me on that, it might not be true any longer. But I'm going to tell you it was true in 2022. You can fact check that. So, but that's one thing I always like to share with our students. And maybe they already know that. That's why they're coming. But that's one thing that stands out to me.
Yeah, I mean, as a Cleveland native, I feel like being
Oh,
here,
you're a native of Cleveland. I love it. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely tell everyone that Cleveland and Baltimore are like extremely similar. It's shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
And I
you.
think one thing too, you have a lot of opportunities to give back to the local community. We have a huge free clinic. I think there's tons of opportunities for just volunteer outreach, and really moving that needle to, combat some of the healthcare disparities that all major cities face, but are I think very prevalent in both Cleveland and Baltimore as well. It looks like, is it Arjit or Argit? If I apologize, I mispronounced your name.
It's Arjit. Thank you.
Arjit, I had it right the first time. Thanks, Arjit. Go for it.
Yeah. I have a question. So, how many Case Western med students end up in, the hospital systems in Cleveland, basically like university hospital for residency?
It varies by year. It's probably similar to what our state demographics are, like 20% in-state, 20% out-of-state. I'm going to say 20 to maybe up to a quarter of our students will stay in Cleveland for residency, but the majority are going to go elsewhere. A lot of our students are just casting a wide net similar to that of medical school, and there's a wide range of specialties, and some of the specialties are more competitive than others, which just leads to casting a very wide net.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But definitely not the majority. To answer your question, I'd say about 20, 25%, 25% probably at the most. Olivia, go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering what sort of engagement does Case Western have with the sort of rural medicine field? Is there any interaction? I mean, it's pretty close to what seems like the big farm communities in Southern Ohio and a lot in Pennsylvania as well. So that's something I was wondering about.
It does, yeah. We have a rural medicine special interest group, actually. So if you are interested in, especially telehealth, a lot of rural medicine, you can certainly join the rural medicine special interest group. We also have a clinical training site. Jaga County, about 40 miles east of Cleveland-ish, 30 to 40 miles, has the nation's second largest Amish population. So if you are interested in getting involved in some more rural medicine and that type of training, you can certainly train at one of our UH Jaga, University Hospitals Jaga campus. And they now have a training program there that is available in your third year. And also in the rural medicine special interest group is a great way to get involved as well. So yeah, I wouldn't say like rural medicine is a popular organization or popular activity, mainly because I think there's just so many different things to get involved in, but the demand is definitely there and available to do so. So good question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for that, Olivia. Is it Peachy? Peche? Excuse me if I mispronounce your name.
Hi, I just have a question that you say at the end. Also think about the DO school, and I know that a lot of DO school like they also want to see why we want to apply the DO school. So if we want to do both MD or DO application at the same time, what kind of prepare we need to do?
Yeah, I see you go by Peggy too. Sorry, I didn't see your Zoom in parentheses there. Thanks, Peggy. So you have two different application services, right? You have your allopathic medical school application, AMCAS, and your ACOMAS, your osteopathic medical school application. So it's two different separate application services. The systems don't talk to each other, so you don't really have to tailor the application like to a DO school if you're applying in the allopathic application. I know osteopathic medical schools, sometimes they'll require a letter of recommendation from a doctor of osteopathic medicine. So that would be just done through that osteopathic medical application service. You wouldn't even have to do that for the allopathic application. So yeah, you might have two different sets of recommendations. You might have, some of those might overlap, perhaps, but since they don't really talk to each other, one doesn't correlate to another, you don't really have to interrelate the two systems in any capacity. Does that help you?
Yeah, because I heard someone told me that if you want to apply the DO school, you need to have more connection, like shadowing with the DO, or like tell people that you really want to go to DO, not like other end.
Yeah, that is true. And many osteopathic medical schools require that. There's not that many osteopathic medical schools compared to allopathic med schools in the United States. So yeah, if you are looking to go a doctor of osteopathic route and you want to consider that as an option, it does help to have some kind of shadowing or some kind of experience in some kind of realm of patient care with a doctor of osteopathic medicine. That is true. So, but it's also, medicine is also medicine. So you don't have to have all your experiences be like that. You don't have to have a certain number of hours be like that. You can still tailor your essays and your overall just desire and commitment to the field. There's a lot more similarities than differences in terms of MD-DO. So that's just one box, I guess, quote unquote, that you will have to check, but I wouldn't let that stress you out. It's more just, I need to have an experience in some capacity in a patient care setting, whether it's shadowing, scribing a DO doc. And then I probably need to have a letter of recommendation, perhaps from a doctor of osteopathic medicine as well.
Oh, sorry, I just wondered, but if we do both at the same time, will not be like unfavorable to say?
Yeah, not unfavorable at all. It's very common, and everyone understands the competitive nature of this process, and we won't even know. The two application systems don't talk to each other. So no, there is not an unfair advantage. You're casting a wider net to kind of increase your odds, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. Well, these are really great questions. I don't know if you're still there, Zuri, if you want to do some kind of closing, or if there's anyone else who had more questions. But just want to say thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't get any direct inbox. Sometimes they accidentally send the messages or questions directly in. I guess just in closing, I know there's a question I get often, so I'll ask it on behalf of students, particularly when utilizing the impactful experience section for the primary application. How well, in terms of giving context to certain experiences, distance traveled, how best should, or what should students think about when utilizing that section to communicate aspects of their stories that might give a little context to some of the challenges they've had to overcome and things like that?
In terms of the experiences section?
The impactful experience, what got changed from disadvantaged statement?
Yes, okay, got it. I think that it's important to know you're not required to bear everything in your life. You can, anything that you do share on an application is open for conversation in an interview. So if you do talk about something in your application, just be prepared to discuss it in an interview. I think that is important to remember and know, okay? I think that if you have a particular adversity experience in your life, family dynamics, whatever that might be, that you feel is a part of your story, I would encourage you to be fully transparent about it within reason, right? I mean, we don't need to be overly maybe dramatic. We want to share it with the context of I want the admissions committee and the screening committee to be aware of my story and how this happened, but I have turned it into something good, right? This adversity I have faced what has it taught me? What have I learned from it? And how am I stronger and more prepared for medical school as a result? So that's probably what I would say to that. I think that everyone has things that they have encountered and faced. There are a wide variety of ways to approach sharing about it. And I think you know yourself better than anybody. So I don't overthink it, is probably what I would also say. And whatever you are comfortable sharing, we encourage you to share about and share, again, something good and something positive, how it's prepared me more. Try to shed some positivity and silver lining in some of the adversity that was faced, if possible. I think one area I would also maybe share is, if you are still maybe coping with a situation like present day, make sure that, you're ready for medical school. Maybe you got to check yourself and ask yourself that a little bit, right? Say, okay, we all have some unresolved, stuff that we're working through sometimes, right? And yeah, like maybe if you're not ready to apply to med school in 2023, maybe in 2025 you'll be more than ready, and that's kind of conversations you got to have with yourself and know yourself really well too. Any follow-ups to that? I know that was
no, that was helpful. I think
okay.
there's a lot of conversation always about the balance between that and the personal statement. And my spiel is always like, if it has tied to your why medicine, then obviously the personal statement is a great way to incorporate it.
100%.
But if it's context that's helpful for understanding your distance travel or your journey, then the impactful statement is an opportunity to shed light on that without needing it to like overtake the experience in your personal statement.
100% right, sir. Yeah, 100, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not going to work negatively against you if you use that disadvantaged impactful statement. I think if you are sharing information that maybe you weren't able to include in the personal statement, perhaps that is important and a meaningful part of your story, I think it really helps provide the screening committee with more context, which is ideal.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your time. And if we don't have any more questions, we'll definitely not hold anyone for the rest of the evening. And we thank you all for being attentive and engaging with the presentation. This session was recorded and will be made available. So if you want to play it back or reach out to Tom, his information will also be provided through email. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Tom. Have a great evening.